Welcome to USAWatchdog.com. I'm Greg Hunter, and today we have with us a regular guy. He talked to us about real estate and the economy, because if you're trading large chunks of real estate, you really have to understand unemployment and the economy and everything else. We have Fabian Calvo from the NoteHouse.us. Fabian Calvo, thank you for joining us today on USA Watchdog.
Greg Hunter, thanks for having me back.
Well, just before I start, I just want to give you just a little more addendum, because I was going to tell you something about you and my channel. I've had on Robert Shiller, from Case Shiller, the professor at Yale, who recently won a Nobel Prize in economics. He shared it with a couple other people. And I want to tell you that you do more video views than him, and he's very popular.
I appreciate that.
Just want to tell you that you're in good company in the real estate and the economic realm when you're getting more views than Robert Shiller, who's a very popular guy, and I really like him. But I like you too. So
Yeah,
here we go.
lot.
I just want to get into to start with you trade $100 million in distressed property a year. You're sitting across the table from people buying 200 houses at a time. You are basically handling billions of dollars. And recently we had some kind of negative news in real estate. Housing starts and contracts are down in the retail market. Is real estate doing bad, or is it doing well from your perspective?
Well, from my perspective, real estate, look, the whole entire economy is doing bad, right? But remember, just like stocks or bonds or whatever, it's all manipulated. So real estate's a hard asset. It's like this, piece of gold that I have here in my hand, and you have billions of dollars, literally billions of dollars from all over the world, hundreds of billions flooding into the market. I pretty much ignore the fact that mortgage apps are down, because truth is, it's a cash market. Cash sales are up 30% year after year. I ignore the fact that, banks are laying off mortgage people because those jobs are being taken over by technology. So is it a manipulated market that will eventually go bust and collapse? Yes, it will. But I think between now and look, I strongly recommend people go back and watch the 4 or 5 interviews we've done together, Greg, because everything I've talked about is happening exactly like I've said it. People that are talking about, even like, look, you take other forecasters like Gerald Celente. I have a tremendous amount of respect for him. Even he's buying real estate. Doug Casey's buying real estate. These guys that are talking economic collapse, they're buying real estate because they know it's the end of the road, rush to hard assets.
So you can't, the gold market is a small market. The silver market, relative to real estate, relative to even stocks or bonds, the real estate market is a huge market. These other markets are small. You're saying that people with, $200, $300, $400 billion are saying, where do I put this money? Let's just buy, tracts of houses and we can rent them out, and it'll be a hard asset. And if interest rates go up, we'll still have a hard asset. We'll still have a tangible asset that can produce rent. Is that what the theory is behind buying all these houses?
That's right. People will still have to they'll still have to live somewhere. And look, the next step of this pump and dump that I've detailed for over a year now is that all of these houses, you have sovereign wealth funds buying houses. You have the biggest billionaires in the world buying houses. You have private equity, hedge funds buying houses. And now a lot of them that are in the know, really the snakes in the game, Greg, they're snakes that are robbing the American people. If you think about it, we have a Fed chief saying, look, this is the biggest backdoor bailout for Wall Street. These guys that are buying homes like crazy. And I don't mean every investor that's buying homes, but I mean the ones that are in collusion with the government. On August 5th, Obama's in Phoenix. He's talking about how, all these foreclosed homes that are on Fannie or that have been sold to some of these bigger hedge funds, we're going to give them government money. In fact, if people go to the FHA website, they can verify this themselves. There's an actual loan called the FHA Obama loan. I'm not making this up. And so they're giving them cheap money to go buy all of these houses. Now, we're starting to just see a little bit of that, but after 2014, mark my words, you'll be seeing that ramp up to unprecedented levels that will make the subprime look like it was just like, it was nothing compared to what we'll be seeing here in the next couple of years.
You have been saying that, the requirements are going to be easier. They're going to flood all this money into the market. These guys are going to buy here and then they're going to sell there. And you'll know when the end is coming, when these loans start. And sure enough, and last time we talked, we didn't have an Obama loan, did we?
Yeah, I mean, look, there was the Obama refinance loan. I was just checking the FHA site the other day. It was the first time I've seen that literally the Obama loan, which is just completely unprecedented. I mean, imagine there being a Ronald Reagan loan. People would be like, this is insanity, right? But look, you have the government taking over major industries, right? They've just taken over almost a third of the healthcare industry. Okay, Greg? What makes people think that they're not going to now start to take all of the tens of millions of foreclosed homes that are out there? I have a good friend of mine who runs a pretty prominent hedge fund. He was telling me that Fannie Mae's balance sheet doubled in less than a month of homes that they had on the market and that were trying to sell in pool sales. It doubled. Okay, so look, the next step is they're either going to give cheap loans out. Already, the FHA needed a $1.7 billion bailout. They have over $1 trillion of loans to subprime borrowers. The fraud is epic in those loans. And so what you're seeing is you're going to see the federal government begin to take over housing, where they're going to be, basically Obama's going to be a landlord to everybody who, he wants to get all these illegal aliens, all these people to, have home ownership. It's going to be, hey, give me a couple hundred dollars. I'll give you this property. And, pay me rent. And so that's where we're going. Where we're going is all of these millions of homes will be subsidized by the federal government, and you'll begin to see the federal government take over a large portion of the housing market.
What happens in the end game here? I mean, we're going to have a reset in currency, and you and I all, the pre-interview, were talking about that there are 7 steps to the global, currency reset, and some of them have already happened. Where are we with this reset?
Yeah, I mean, look, this is something, this is real. I mean, this is the real deal here. I spoke at a conference a few months back, and I mean, we're talking, Greg, about people that are doing multi-billion-dollar deals on a monthly basis. These guys, and I shouldn't say all of them, but a growing number, now over 50% of them, all recognize and are vocal. I mean, I've been talking about a global economic reset for over a year where the dollar loses its world reserve currency status. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen tomorrow or next year, but many of these big players, all of them agree it's going to happen, and probably sooner than later. And you're seeing the handwriting on the wall. Yesterday, you saw, a Russian lawmaker say, let's ban the dollar. You see the Chinese bilateral trade agreements. It's a 7-step process. I think we're halfway there. And I think eventually what you're going to see is you see this Chinese-Russian superpower kind of block emerging, the BRIC nations emerging. And they'll tell you pretty soon you're going to see the Russians say, hey, you want to buy our oil? You need to use a new currency. People understand, and this Russian lawmaker said it best yesterday. He said, look, the countries that wean themselves from the dollar right now will be the least to suffer. People that are still going to be dependent on the dollar, whether you live in America or you're outside of America, those people are going to get absolutely devastated. They're going to be crushed.
When you say crushed, I mean, you're going to see massive loss of buying power of the dollar. I mean, we're talking about, a 90% drop in the buying power of a dollar. So gas would be, I don't know, from $3 to $25 a gallon or something like that?
Well, I'm asked that often, Greg, and and what I tell people is, look, I don't even need to give my opinion on that. Let's just go back and look at Argentina. Let's look at, England when they had a major devaluation. Let's look at Mexico. Prices for pretty much everything you shop for double and triple in price. They'd likely be a currency devaluation of around half. I mean, that's what happened in the tequila crisis in Mexico. The day before the devaluation in Mexico, and people say, well, we're not Mexico. Well, really, we're not Mexico? The corruption in America. I mean, you have, again, a Fed chief apologizing, literally saying, sorry, America, for what we're doing with this quantitative easing. So the day before they devalue the currency in Mexico, just in the 90s, by half, you have basically politicians saying, no, everything's fine. What are you talking about? Look, what people need to understand is this, is that if you're a business and you get a bunch of credit and you have a bank who's giving you a lot of credit, a lot of time that bank's going to have a lot of say in how you run your business. They're going to want to check things out. They're going to want to give you direction. America's the largest debtor nation in the history of the world. China has a record amount of our debt. You think the Chinese aren't telling America, here's how we want you to conduct foreign policy. Here's what we want you to do economically. We want you to accept our freaking tainted Chinese chickens that you need to sell and take out the American farmer? Of course, the handwriting's on the wall.
Well, you had William Dudley also, and I couldn't believe this. This is in USA Today this week, and he basically came out. He's the head of the New York Fed, right? William Dudley. And he's basically saying that the Wall Street bankers don't care about the law, and I mean that is a huge. I mean he's talking about fraud. He's talking about crime, theft, wrongdoing, and here you have a major Fed chief. And I'm wondering. Why is that bubbling out in the mainstream media? Why all of a sudden is that on page 2 of the financial section of USA Today, Dudley saying this? It should have been on the front page.
Yeah, I mean, listen.
I wonder if they know this is going to blow up and they're going to blame somebody. And it's the big bankers. I mean, are they going to take them and prosecute them and say, those are the people who caused it, when really it was the entire Federal Reserve System, the way they do business.
Yeah, well, listen, hopefully there are new Nuremberg trials for what the criminality that what these people are doing to this economy. But again, look, you have Dudley coming out. You have the ex-Fed chief, another ex-Fed chief coming out apologizing to the American people. This is significant. I mean, you have, the other day I saw a program with the Washington Times journalist who was talking about how I forgot her name, but she was out there basically exposing the air marshals and all the corruption within Department of Homeland Security. Greg, she had her home raided by the feds, all of her personal notes taken. Out of the 11 whistleblower prosecutions that have taken place in the history of America, 8 of them have happened under the Obama administration. They're going after the whistleblowers. I wouldn't be surprised to see, this ex-Fed chief, Dudley, other people that begin to come out. I wouldn't be surprised to see these guys dead. I mean, the fraud and the corruption. I can just tell you in the real estate market, right? The fraud in the FHA loan market is absolutely, it's ridiculous. The fraud with the big banks that bought all these banks that went bankrupt back in 08, 07, 08, 09. All of these banks that went bankrupt that had their defaulted, distressed loan portfolios bought up by the big mega banks. These big mega banks, via the FDIC loss share agreement, I want people to go look and research that themselves. The FDIC loss share agreement has made hundreds of billions of dollars. They talk about, they paid back the TARP funds. They paid back the TARP funds with money from American taxpayers. It is insanity. And I think that once the American people realize, unfortunately they may realize too late, that's the direction we're headed in, it's going to be really ugly. And people are going to be out for blood. And that's why you see a lot of these ex-bankers, they're leaving the country. They know what's going to happen. Look, the last point I'll make with that too, Greg, is you have the looting of the country is literally happening right now. It's underway. These big financial guys, and again, not all of them, not everybody on Wall Street's bad. I know a lot of them. They're good, honorable people. But it only takes a few. The corruption, the criminality, they're robbing the American people blind via a bailout that's happening, multiple bailouts that are happening. And look, the American people will want to hold these people accountable.
Well, my big question is they give $40 billion a month to the bankers, and you say it's more than $85 billion a month. 45 for treasuries and 40 to the banks, and nobody in Congress will ask this question: which banks are getting $40 billion a month? That's their stated amount. You're saying, have told me in the past, that you think it's more than $85 billion a month in quantitative easing. Yeah, well, we know that they reinvest the money, so right there, it's about another 5 to 8 billion more, so that puts it at over 90. I've had on good word, I'm talking from people that are in closed door meetings with the Fed. I attend a lot of these conferences where a lot of Fed guys come out, not Fed chiefs, the people that work at the Feds. The guys that I talk to, they're in closed door meeting with Fed chiefs, and they're telling me it's closer to $125 billion a month. Because remember, again, this is all playing into, if they want to keep the dollar propped up, keep the economy propped up, it's not just about bailing out American banks, Greg. It's about bailing out Western banks as well and keeping that whole financial structure, propped up. That can only last so long. Eventually, it's gonna go bust. Look, you had the Dallas Fed chief coming out the other day saying, look, he's very concerned about a new housing bubble, and he's saying, but yet he doesn't think that they should taper
they'll never taper. If they taper, the economy will collapse, and they know this. So they'll keep doing this. You'll see real estate prices, you'll see stock prices continue to go up in price for likely the next several years until there is some event, something does happen, likely involving China or Russia, and they challenge the dollar, and the rest of the world says, look, these guys are right. We can't continue to accept the dollar and all the inflation that the U.S. dollar imports into our country. Inflation up over 250% in the last 10 years in China alone. It's unsustainable.
Fabian Calvo, what a great inside ball of information you threw out here to the USA Watchdog viewers. Really appreciate you exposing this corruption and fraud from your end of the table where you see this all the time. Fabian Calvo, the notehouse.us. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. And let me just say real quickly, I want to thank you because in the world where the media is absolutely dying, I mean, you are literally one of the few remaining that, you used to work at the mainstream. They kicked you out because you were exposing the truth about the economy. I don't think people know this about you, but I'm telling them about this. And it's great to see how you've taken this on this own platform. Likely your videos get many more views than most mainstream outlets do. And that's great to see because people need to know the truth. And I want to thank you for being, on the cutting edge of that.
Well, Fabian Calvo, thank you for telling the truth on USAWatchdog.com. Again, Fabian Calvo, thenotehouse.us, and also Fabian for Liberty. You have your own YouTube channel. Thank you so much for what you're doing for us. We really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Greg. Thanks for having me on.